Hi, my name's Jessica. My major is information science and technology. I live in Tucson, and a fun fact about me is that I have a twin sister that goes to NAU.
Okay, I'm Alex. I'm studying physiology at U of A. I came from Chandler, and my fun fact is I'm still living in Chandler. I'm taking stuff remotely.
My name's Anna. I'm from Tucson, and my major right now is pre-business. And a fun fact about me is that I've done swimming my whole life.
Hi, my name is Rachel. I'm from Wisconsin. My major is mechanical engineering, and a fun fact about me is that I like rock climbing.
Hi, I'm Sebastian. I'm an engineering major. I'm from Scottsdale, Arizona. And fun fact about me, I like basketball.
My name is Julia. I'm from Tucson. My major is engineering, and a fun fact about me is my favorite music artist is Taylor Swift. So our presentation is drug trafficking and its effects. So in general, drug trafficking is a global trade involving the cultivation, manufacture, distribution, and sale of illicit substances subject to drug prohibition laws. And in our presentation, we explore the different effects it has in different areas. In specific, we look at effects within the community, victims of the trade, immigration effects, the economic impact, and various policies working to combat the trade. We look into the Mexican and Colombian cartels, which remain problematic for the US government. Also, as you can see in the graph, there's economic implications and a lot of money spent. While we may never rid drug trafficking, government officials and agencies are always working on new strategies to stop illegal substances from being brought into and transported throughout the US.
Drug trafficking has a large effect on communities, particularly impoverished ones near the US-Mexico border. Poor families sometimes turn to drug trafficking as a source of income, whether they run out of options and need to feed their families. The environment can lead to an increase in crime and even cartel violence within these neighborhoods. It also leads to a normalization of drug trafficking and use in these communities, which can be dangerous because people lose sight of the trials involved.
These effects can be seen in cities like Juarez. Juarez is located right on the Mexican-US border, right across from El Paso, and is now seen as the murder capital of the world. Communities like these can hardly even be seen as communities. According to an article on the Mexican drug war by Maria Morales, between 2006 and 2011, 124,000 people left Juarez seeking safety. People in these areas are constantly on the move. Because communities are made up of the people in them, drug-related violence's main effect on the community is that it basically kills them, maybe instead making a mobile community as people flee the city. Similar to what I spoke of on the last slide, there are many more innocent victims of drug traffic than there are actually involved in the war. For example, in Juarez between 2006 and 2011, 10,000 children were left as orphans, with murders being 7,643. Additionally, just last year, 9 tourists were killed by drug violence after being mistaken as a rival gang, according to an article in the New York Post by Tamar Lapin. The victims of drug war aren't always those whose lives get taken by it. Families are often torn apart by drug violence.
When looking at drug trafficking, we should also be considering the people who are consuming them. Drug addiction has always been a widespread issue within the US, but in recent years, the number of heroin and synthetic opioid overdoses have drastically increased. This has also increased the amount of new HIV and hepatitis C cases as a result. According to the CDC, 46,802 fatal overdoses occurred in 2018, and in 2017, 3,641 individuals contracted HIV from drug-related circumstances.
Drug trafficking and immigration are strongly correlated because most of the illegal drugs that enter the United States originate outside the country. For example, the trade routes depicted in the chart. Thousands of undocumented immigrants from various countries work as couriers and smuggle narcotics and other illicit drugs into the US. Legal drugs can be grown and processed almost anywhere, but the most common element connecting all the places of production is that they must remain secret to avoid detection by law enforcement. The US is the most profitable market for international drug traffickers, with tons of drugs smuggled every day, which is primarily done by illegal immigrants. The drug trade operates much like other illegal underground markets and often takes place in underdeveloped countries. However, consumption of illegal drugs is widespread globally and has been regarded as having reached epidemic proportions within the United States.
A specific way drug trafficking and immigration intertwine is something called the smuggler's fee, which is when immigrants pay drug smugglers to smuggle them across the border as well. It's common because immigrants often don't want to face the dangers of crossing the border across the desert because many people have died this way, but it's also dangerous because there are consequences of being caught in this situation that are far worse than being caught trying to cross from the desert.
So in 1971, Nixon officially declared a war on drugs, and it's $150 billion are annually spent on the most common ones, such as weed, cocaine, heroin, and meth, which causes a black market and a lot of underground exchanges, which are overall bad for the economy. And 35.1 billion have been spent in 2020 to try and get this problem under control.
According to Felipe Gonzalez, for cities that do contain drug trafficking organizations or cartels in Mexico, there is a slight benefit of around 1% to the local economy. But that does not account for social impact and the impact it has on individual families. With drug trafficking, there's an increase in cartels and their influence in Mexico and even in places like Southern California and Southern Arizona. And this gives them more power where they can rival even the Mexican government or even the American police force. Right here's El Chapo Guzman, and he basically had more power than even the Mexican president did because of how much economic impact his cartel had.
So if you're caught with some sort of illegal drug, you'll get between a class 2 and class 6 felony, with the max sentence being about 12.5 years. But oftentimes they will combine charges like the 5 listed below: paraphernalia, possession, manufacturing, delivery, trafficking, and dealing, to add on to your overall sentence. So while you may be charged for one, they will add on to that and get the greatest overall sentence possible. And they find these drugs, as you can see, sniffing dogs, just hidden in various packages going over the border and in all sorts of different ways.
The drug trade faces a fundamental supply and demand issue when trying to reduce drug trafficking. Historically, where demand for drugs is present, a supplier will always be able to supply them. To combat this, countries such as Switzerland have successfully experimented with widespread rehab clinics. These heroin maintenance clinics give addicts free opioid substitutes and a safe place to inject drugs. While at first sounding counterintuitive, the results of Switzerland's harm reduction strategy have been astounding. In the past 2 decades, the number of opioid-related deaths in Switzerland has decreased 64%, and along with it, the spread of related diseases such as HIV and hepatitis C.
So for social sciences, this shows that drug use does have a huge effect on gender, where you can see 72%, the majority for violence because of drugs, are towards men versus just 50% of women. And for humanities, drugs, whether it be trafficking or use, have a huge effect on families, friends, anyone who's connected to just the people involved. And you can see here, this is a picture of a family whose family member was taken by members of drug cartels. And it is a big part of families, even in more suburban areas. And just because of natural science, you can see these drugs obviously do have a huge effect on the brain and development. And with younger people drugs being more common with younger people, you could argue even stunting their growth and just having a huge effect overall.
And for our conclusion, of course, we know that drugs are bad, but a lot of the drugs that do come from, or in the US, do come from Mexico and the South America and Central America, and we are so close to the border here in Tucson. So there will, of course, be more drugs here. and the cartels do have a lot of influence. Even here, they have more influence than they would in like other states because we are close to a border. And the things we can do to stop this is what Switzerland has done, or even make more drugs legal, such as marijuana.
Here are all our sources.
So something that I originally struggled with was finding sources that fit exactly what I was looking for. And after specifying my searches, I managed to find journals that related to the topics I wanted to explore more, and the University of Arizona files were really helpful for that.
I had a kind of a similar problem with finding sources that, were exactly what I wanted. And the main issue was even when I found the source that seemed like it had what I wanted in it, it was, locked behind the paywall. So, yeah.
Something I think as a group we could relate to was, since even though this is such an interesting topic, it is very broad. So picking the 5 that we really focused on was a little bit difficult, but I ended up really liking the 5 that we went with.
One thing that I don't really know if it's necessarily a good thing, but I kind of like fit my topic too with the sources I found. So I found a really good source on like small towns and the effect of drugs on them. So I kind of like changed my topic, so focused on that.
One of my struggles was, even if I did find good sources, it'd be hard to like use those sources and explain it in words, basically.
For me, I found our whole general topic to be really interesting, especially because it had so many different connections to all the different disciplines. Like Anna said, it was really hard to narrow down which areas we wanted to focus in, and then also finding specific scholarly sources, journalistic sources, and just trying to like support all of our ideas. So.